Hey guys, what's going on? Tyraku here, back with another raid video. Today, I want to answer a question that was brought up on stream, and you see this is in the video request section of my Discord, which if you want to join that, the link is down below. Feel free to join. And if you have a specific video you want to see, definitely ask a question. Now, it appears that I asked this question, but I promise I'm not actually asking questions and requesting videos in my own Discord channel. It's a little bit weird if I was doing that. This question came from Famori on the stream, and it was based off of the video I did previously, which was jumping into like the substat roles of gear, like the potential minimums and maximums you can get from like different star rankings of gear. So what he was wondering is, so he said, so his big thing in stats of gear is figuring out how to hit 100% crit or the needed speed levels. For the next vid, maybe show how you hit 100% crit based off of double, triple, and quad rolls. And then Northern Hipster followed this up with basically, yeah, I second that. I want to know the same thing. And he did nail it basically right on top of the thing right here. Every piece needs about 10 to 15% crit rate if you're going with crit damage gloves. Now, I want to make a few assumptions in this video. First off, I want to assume that your champion you're going to be gearing for crit rate is going to be needing 100%. So no auras, no battle auras, no cold hearts who only need 70% to make their Heartseeker work. None of that stuff, okay? So there's obviously all those side tangents we can go on, but for simplicity's sake, you need 100% crit rate. Your champion will be a damage-based champion, and you will be trying to get 100% crit rate. So you're also going to have the mastery up here that adds 5% crit rate, okay? So we can get all that laid out. We're all on the same page. And so basically all champions that we're talking about are going to have a built-in 20% default crit rate, and then we just need to fill in the space for the rest of the 80%. Now, in this video, I don't only want to go over crit rate. I also want to talk about like kind of substat prioritization and touch on that just a little bit. I don't want to go too in depth for it, but I definitely think this is going to help you guys out. Now, Hell Hades does have his gear optimizer, which I'm actually a huge fan of. I tried it a few days ago on stream. I love it. This is going to tie in very well with that because the optimizer is amazing, but you do need to know your stat priorities to know what you actually need on the champion. And I kind of want to get into this because we don't have infinity gear. Like there's limits to the gear we have. Even if you're a massive whale, you have limits to your gear. So first off, let me talk about how I hit 100% crit rate. I'm going to pull this graph up. While I'm pulling this graph up, guys, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and then drop a comment down below. And I'm actually maybe on Twitch streaming right now if you're watching this video. So once you finish, you can come on over to Twitch and I'll be live for a few hours. Now, pulling up this graph, all right, and we're also going to pull up a calculator because I'm not going to make you guys just trust me with my math. That's typically not a good idea. So like I was saying, your champions have a built-in 20% crit rate, and then we have to add, basically we have to fill in the gap of 80%, all right? And as you may or may not know, the only pieces you can get crit rate on are your top 6 pieces of gear. Nothing on the bottom can get crit rate. All right. Now, if you had crit damage gloves, you can roll crit rate. If you have crit rate percent gloves, you cannot roll crit rate percent. So here, this is all you can get. All right. So we're going to assume you're wearing crit damage gloves. So you have 6 different pieces of gear that can roll crit rate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to open up this calculator and we're going to open up this trusty stat sheet. So we take 80, which is the amount of crit rate we need to fill, and divide that number by 6. 13.33, since you can't get a decimal of crit rate, we're going to go ahead and round that up to 14. So you need about 14% crit rate on every piece of gear to actually get 100% crit rate, all right? Now, we're not including speed, not including accuracy, or nothing like that, solely focused on crit rate to keep it simple, all right? So 14% on each piece. Let's say you had 6-star pieces of gear. What would you be looking at? Well, if you had a rare piece of gear or even an uncommon piece of gear where you could add a default substat and then add a +1 modifier to it. So if you had an uncommon piece of gear that had already rolled crit rate and then you roll it again, both of your rolls were the highest they could possibly be, then you're going to fall in this 14% range, okay? The 6-star gear, 14%. If every piece you had was that alone, you would have 100% crit rate. Now, obviously, there's some clear issues here. Unless you're running a complete speed set, so you have 3 speed sets, your speed's gonna be very low. You're gonna be lacking in almost every other stat except for your crit rate. That will be 100%. Crit damage will basically be non-existent. So you can kind of see how reaching your crit rate goals is a little difficult unless you get a piece, for example, it's a 6-star that's rolling good for like a double or even a triple roll. Triple roll being 3 modifiers and a quad roll being 4. So you essentially, for a triple roll, you have 3 modifiers on top of the original stat, which I go over in the previous video. I'll try to link that above if you want to check that out. Now, triple roll, let me show you a champion who has a perfect example of this, okay? And that is my Seer. This kind of shows you the weight of having a really good rolled 6-star piece of gear, okay? So she has a 26% crit rate on her chest plate. That allows me to, on my other pieces, 11%, 10%, 17%. So we get to cut back quite a bit, 11%. I can fall short, 7%, and it's not a problem. But it's because I have that one chest plate that's carrying me. So the point I want to get across is, depending on where you're at in the game, it may not make complete sense for you to wear crit damage gloves. Because let's look at the reverse of this. Now, obviously, if you're getting double rolls, it's not impossible. Like, you get a pretty good chance as long as you're getting consistent double rolls, but you're not leaving yourself room for other substats like accuracy and speed that are very, very important. I'm going to get into my prioritization and kind of like my thought process when gearing a champion later on in this video, but that's kind of the best idea I can give right now. Now, if you switch it over to do crit rate gloves instead of crit damage gloves, obviously if you're running crit damage gloves, it's going to give you the best chance of getting the most crit damage. Now, I'm not going to say that's the only way you can get a lot of crit damage, because my Royal Guard, for example, has 263% crit damage, and he has crit rate gloves on. All right, now let's assume you're getting, let's just say 5-star. We'll just say 5-star crit rate gloves, which have a potential to give you 50% crit rate. Now, as I said before, you can't roll crit rate substat on a crit rate percentage main stat pair of gloves. So instead of 6 pieces of gear we're going to be dividing this by, we're going to have only 5 pieces. 6 minus 1, 5. Huge math lessons, I know. All right, so if we have a built-in 20%, we have our 50% gloves, that leaves 50, 60, 70. So we only need to fill the gap of 30% crit rate. So we'll take 30 divided by 5, which is 6% crit rate per piece of gear. Obviously, you can see how much easier this becomes. So 6% crit rate per piece of gear, it doesn't matter. Like, if you get a single roll on that uncommon piece of gear that I talked about earlier, that already gives you, essentially, that covers 2, possibly almost 3 pieces of gear. If you get a double roll, 3 pieces of gear would be 18, 6, 12, 18%. If you had a double roll, which could be a rare piece of gear with a double roll and both rolls are pretty decent, you're basically covering all the crit rate you need for 3 pieces of gear, which this allows you to, hey, now you can start working on crit damage rolls, okay? So now you can start getting crit damage sets. Like, as you can see, my Royal Guard has a crit damage set equipped, which is a automatic 20% crit damage, which is huge. I'm able to focus on, now he does have really good crit damage rolls, but I could easily substitute these pieces for actual crit damage sets and fill them out perfect and still have over 230% crit damage without too much of an issue. Now, he does have this mastery, so obviously it's not as easy to get super high crit damage numbers, but you're still able to get respectable numbers, but a much, much easier time to actually get your crit rate to 100%. Now, that's what I want to kind of jump into and talk about, is when you should go for crit rate and when you should wear crit damage gloves, when you should wear crit rate gloves, and so on and so forth. There's a few different stat priorities I want to get into. So Famori specifically asked kind of how to balance those stats. Obviously, you can throw a champion in here that gives them 100% crit rate, but they have 100 speed, they have no accuracy, and they're just useless, basically. So you got to kind of weigh that out. First off, if it depends on the champion you're building, all right? So keep in mind, what is the use of the champion you're looking for, all right? Let's take, for example, Royal Guard, okay? I'm going to be using him in dungeons. He's not going to be used in clan boss. He's not going to be used in the arena, only in dungeons. His only role is to go after my debuffer. So I need to make him slower than whoever's applying the debuffs. And I need to make him fast enough to go before any of the waves in whatever dungeon I'm taking him in. Obviously, I don't want him running at like 150 speed. That's just too slow. He's not going to get rotations fast enough, and it's going to slow it down way too much. So The only stats I really need are attack, which is not really what we're focused on here, but I need speed, crit rate, and a lot of crit damage. So I know, hey, I'm not going to bring him into arena. He doesn't need to be crazy fast. I'm not going to bring him into clan boss. He doesn't have to be specifically speed tuned. He can have some wiggle room with the speed number that I need. So now I can go in and build him. Okay, let's see what I can get with the gear I have. And now, okay, well, if I know I can't get the speed I need with a crit damage pair of gloves, then I just throw in some crit rate gloves, find the gear I have with good rolls for crit damage, and then I can meet both of them to the point they need to be. So if like Royal Guard, I don't want him to have 98% crit rate. I'd rather him actually be a little bit slower, as long as he's still faster than the waves, but have 100% crit rate, than be a little bit faster and be inconsistent. Because for dungeons, you want to have consistent runs, and if you're not critting and you're not landing those big hits you want to land, then it's going to mess up your runs majority of the time. Now, another very, very important point is when you're building a champion that is very specific in stats like this, especially if you go the crit rate glove option, a thing that's really going to help, and I'm typically not a huge person like, hey, you have to equip sets and it's a huge help. But I mean, obviously, yes, it is a huge help. But if you're trying to fix the speed tunes, you can throw on a regular speed set, which is farmable from Dragon, very easy to get. This will really help you fix your speeds if you need to push out a few more extra speed points, and you're probably getting a ton of speed gear anyways, speed set gear. Also, you can get some perception gear, which is what my Seer is wearing. Now for Seer, she's a little bit different as far as tuning goes. Overall, very similar. I do use her in the arena a little bit, so I wanted her speed to be over 185, I think it was. So I definitely kept that in mind. And then her accuracy. This is another thing for Seer. Luckily, I have pieces of gear that can finish the set for accuracy and the banner to fill that in as well. But I know I need accuracy, crit rate. This champion's like more difficult to gear. This is more of an in-game build. Now, if I was just doing just dungeons and things like that, I wouldn't need this much accuracy. This is for Doom Tower specifically. I could lower the accuracy there. I do need 100% crit rate, but I could probably lower the speed a little bit as well. She doesn't really need 190 speed. So that kind of, hopefully that gives you a decent idea on how you can prioritize your stats. It really comes down to an account-to-count basis. If you know you have really good double rolls, triple rolls, then yeah, go ahead and put crit damage gloves on your champions and try to get that crit rate. But if you know your account is full of 5-star gear, which if we look at 5-star gear on this list, then, because I was giving examples with 6-star gear, let's jump down here to 5-star gear, which is probably a little bit more realistic. And that 14% number from earlier would mean you're going to have to basically get top of the line double rolls on your crit rate. So basically you need a rare piece of gear that lands crit rate on both rolls, or a double roll on an epic piece of gear, whatever it may be. But you're going to need at least double rolls that are on the higher end of being good to get the crit rate you need, which leaves a very small line on how much you can invest into other stats. So when it comes to prioritizing your stats, you really need to think about what the champion's role is. Are they built for damage? Okay, if they're built for damage, then you know, hey, I need to make them fast enough where they actually get a turn. And then I need to make sure their crit rate gets to a point where it makes sense, okay? For example, if it's an arena, you may not need exactly 100%. It may be okay if you kill everybody except for one champion, because if you're at 98% crit rate, you're gonna crit most of the people when you attack, okay? Not a huge deal depending on where you're at in the arena, but you can sacrifice a little bit to get some more crit damage from that. However, like I was saying with the dungeons, if you need those consistent runs, definitely push to get a little extra on the crit rate side of things. Now, I don't want to make this video too long, but one more thing I want to throw in. When you're trying to get accuracy and when you're trying to get speed as well, really, really, really think about what is your champion's role, okay? What is the main role? Because most champions can be built for several different things, okay? Ray, for example, is a champion who can literally use every stat. Like she needs attack, she needs speed, HP would be great, defense would be great, crit rate, she needs it because she's a damage dealer, needs a lot of crit damage, and she needs accuracy because she places debuffs and strips debuffs, okay? Now, with my Ray, I've decided, all right, well, I don't have the gear to make sense of Ray being in my arena team and stripping debuffs. So I've had to sit back and think, okay, Ray hits hard. I want to use her as a nuker. So for a nuke champion in the arena, I need her to be fast. I need her to be slower than my speed booster. I need her to go after my debuff champion if I'm bringing one as well. So like a Madame Saris, any other decreased defense. Granted, Ray does place decreased defense, but if I really wanted to hit hard, I need to have her go after that. Now, she is in Savage Gear, so the decreased defense isn't as important. But if she wasn't in Savage Gear, which ignores some defense already, then I would really want to make sure she goes right after my debuffer. So she has speed that's fast enough to make sure she doesn't get cut in. She's not super slow. But then her accuracy, I've basically ignored that. Like her banner does have some accuracy on it, but it so happened to be the best speed that I had. Overall, though, the accuracy is fairly ignored. A lot of this is coming from my Great Hall, which is plus 60 artifacts. I got a few extra rolls, but you'll notice that I don't have anything that has specifically an accuracy set or anything like that. Because what I wanted to do with Ray is I realized, hey, I just want her to do damage, and I wanted to go after my speed booster and my debuffer. Okay, that's exactly how I built her. Now, for somebody like Armiger, for example, Armiger is going to be similar in the fact that you need 100% crit rate because his ability 1 decreases the turn meter by 30% if this attack is critical. For him, you need 100% crit rate, so you need to keep that as your focus, okay? You also need to make sure the speed is very good. So you have crit rate and speed, the two stats you know you need, and then in order to apply that debuff, in order to apply the decreased turn meter, you're going to need accuracy as well. So you don't need crit damage. Yeah, crit damage is great, very, very helpful, but you definitely need to hit 100% crit rate because if he's going, say 250 speed, but only has 50% crit rate, he's going to miss most of his decreased turn meters and going to make him way less valuable. But you take that same champion, put him at 180 speed with 100% crit rate, and he's going to be landing every single one of the decreased turn meters, assuming your accuracy is at the level where it needs to be. Assuming all those things are in check, he's going to be much more valuable being a little bit slower or even quite a bit slower, but 100% crit rate. Obviously, this all comes back to you need to make sure their speed ultimately is faster than whatever boss or whatever dungeon or wave you're against. Because if you're going slower, especially with a turn meter reduction champion, if you're going slower than them, then you're not really going to get the benefit. So keep that in mind when you're gearing champions. Really take a step back and think, what is the number one role of this champion? Another good example, Frozen Banshee. She's a debuffer. She applies a lot of poisons. She is great with 100% crit rate. And yeah, if you can gear her like that, do it. But your main priority is applying her poisons. Most of her damage comes from these 5% poisons. So for poisons, you need to make sure her speed is good for the clan boss specifically, or for dragons or wherever you're using her. And then you need to make sure her accuracy is good. If you can get her speed and her accuracy both at a very respectable, good amount, then obviously you want to make sure her defense and her HP is good if you're using her in the clan boss. But then you can start working on the crit rate. She could have 100% crit rate and then have like 100 accuracy, and she'd be doing way, way, way less than if she had 250, 200 accuracy, whatever you need for whatever content you're in. But the accuracy number you need for that, a good speed, and then no crit rate whatsoever. She's going to do better with that second build option than she would with 100% crit rate and then just a mediocre crit damage. So definitely think about where your champions, like what is their main role? And then once you get to the gear level of being able to separate those into other areas, then you can start focusing on those other stats. Like I said, this is really just focusing on crit rate, crit damage, speed, and accuracy. Obviously, you can throw in more complex builds with like HP, defense, and attack. But I really want to focus on, first off, the actual gear level you need to equip crit damage gloves on somebody, and how it may even make more sense to just throw on crit rate gloves, depending on what your champion's use is and where you're going to need them at. So hopefully that video makes sense, guys. I've been trying to figure out a way to get this information across without going too into the weeds and too complex, I guess. But hopefully this comes across. Hopefully this helps somebody out with building a champion. Like I said, Hell Hades Gear Optimizer pairs very well with this information. I mean, if you don't know what to focus on, the Gear Optimizer is not really going to give you what you exactly need. So this does work very well. And I've been using it a lot on stream. So if you guys want to see a breakdown of it, come by stream. I'll likely be using it if I have the silver, but the silver, so such a bad situation. Either way, guys, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and feel free to click one of the ones that are about to pop up. Other than that, I'll catch you in the next one.